Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, August 17th, 2017. I am Dan Rubin, coming to you from an overcast Gem City, talking to the man, Steve Wiltfong, Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. His wife is chauffeuring him around today. Steve, how does it feel to be taken care of to such a great level?
Good morning, Daniel. I'm actually driving, but she does take care of me every day with that smoothie. That gets my day on track, and I'm excited to be talking Ohio State and Big Ten with you guys today.
If he's had a smoothie, you know he's fired up. For those of you who don't know, Steve has started, albeit, over my crushed heart, a new podcast with Alan True of Scout as we've merged, going over the Big Ten, the Notorius B1G Podcast. You guys recently did a podcast in which you had on representatives, at least one from every Big Ten school. You guys kept it tight. The podcast total's only a little bit under 5 hours. So if anyone's looking to write their senior thesis on a Big Ten preview this year, you have your number one item in the bibliography. But I digress, which you guys must have done in 5 hours. We all know Ohio State's the favorite. In terms of what you learned from your marathon podcast, who is the biggest threat to Ohio State and why?
Well, that was a lot of ball busting first on the intro with the name and the length.
Almost as long as your podcast. Go ahead.
Right. See, but anyway, we had Bill Green on from Scouts Ohio State side, and then we had the man Dave Biddle on to talk about Ohio State season 2, and then we had Howard Griffith on from the Big Ten Network, and the de facto wild card college football playoff game is Ohio State, Penn State at Ohio State. Now, obviously, there's always twists and turns and things you aren't forecasting before the season starts. That there'll be some curveballs in the season, but as it lines up right now, I think that, everyone listening, for the most part, would agree that Ohio State, Penn State is a wild card game, and the winner will have a great opportunity to make the college football playoff. Bill Green thinks that if it's a shootout, Bill Green thinks that if it's a shootout, Ohio State may not have the guns to hang with Penn State, and that if Bill Green's looking for more of a hard-nosed, lower-scoring ball game would favor the Buckeyes. So I asked Howard Griffith from the Big Ten Network about that later in the show. And he kind of flipped the script and said if it turns into a shootout, you talk about the insane depth that Ohio State has on the defensive line, that they should be able to make game-changing plays in a shootout behind the line of scrimmage to, thwart a drive. Or if you're in a shootout, you're really looking at one or two key stops to win the game or a turnover, right? Other than that, your defense is getting its ass kicked both ways. But I think he was saying that Ohio State has that juice up front to make more game-changing plays than Penn State in a shootout to win the ball game. I think Ohio State's going to win the game. It's a night game at home, so you feel good about Ohio State's chances. I actually went to Ohio State, Penn State night game a couple of years ago that you were able to hook the tickets up for me and my wife, and I don't think I've been in an environment. I don't know why I said I don't think. I know I've never been in a regular season football game that's had that kind of environment. With Christian Hackenberg's freshman year, Ohio State just beat their ass. And each time Ohio State scored, it just got louder and louder inside the shoe, and it was just an insane atmosphere. Now, Ohio State's the favorite to win the Big Ten East across the board. They're the most talented. But Penn State, I think they got a chance to be a top 5 offense this year. When you talk about the huge step forward they made last year in new offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead's debut with the Nittany Lions, they went from being a very boring football team to being an exciting football team. And then they finally have an offensive line that has experience. They bring back their quarterback McSorley. They have Barkley, and then they have a ton of talent at receiver. They can beat anybody on any given day. And for both teams, Ohio State or Penn State, it's a disappointing season if you don't make the playoff. It's a disappointing season if Ohio State doesn't win the national championship because that's the expectation. For Penn State, sure, they want to win the national championship too, but I think if they make the playoff, everybody's happy. But one of those two teams is not going to be happy because I doubt that both make the college football playoffs. So that's the ball game. And then I think Michigan. I think the expectations are too high for Michigan this year. You lose 10 starters on defense. They lose, I think it was 7 on offense. And people are trying to put them in the same air as Penn State and Ohio State. And I just don't think they will be. But that doesn't mean that they still can't play in a New Year's Bowl and maybe even a New Year's Six Bowl. And that's a successful season. And then I look at Michigan next year and say they got a chance to be as good as anybody in the country in 2 years from now. Also think Nebraska is going to be damn good 2 years from now. The Big Ten's just trending up all around, Dan, when you look at the way that they're recruiting, the pulse of the league. It's sexy across the board right now. In Lincoln, Nebraska, you got Mike Riley doing a good job. At Maryland, you got DJ Durkin doing a nice job. And then, of course, you got the big three right now in Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. Wisconsin's going to remain steady. Although I'm a little scared for Wisconsin this year. I'm starting to lean Northwestern in the Big Ten West stand because you got Wisconsin losing Sitchie at linebacker. They have their third defensive coordinator in 3 years, but that's your third different play caller. So they go from being a pretty damn good defense and a defense that was on point with the way they attacked to Jim Leonard. Can they strike gold 3 years in a row from a play calling standpoint? Question out there. And then we had Evan Flood on from Badger 247 who called their quarterback Alex Hornibrook more of a game manager. I thought Hornibrook flashed potential last year in the Michigan State game as a guy who could make plays to win you the ball game. But if he's a game manager, I like Northwestern. I like Northwestern in the Big Ten West. So long story short, or summarizing everything just said, Ohio State, Penn State, that is the game I can't wait to see more than any other ball game this year on the college football slate. And then I will also be at the Ohio State Indiana game on August 31st, not down the road for me in Bloomington. So excited to kick off the season and see a ball game in person, as I don't go to college games anymore on the weekend as there's so many recruiting storylines. A Thursday game, I can hit that. So I will be there for Ohio State, Indiana, which I talked about on the podcast. Kevin Wilson wants to score 90 in that ball game, but Indiana's kind of my sleeper team. I got them 8 wins this year. They're my sleeper team in the Big Ten. They got a really good receiving core. Ohio State's breaking in a new secondary for a third year in a row. In Indiana, they have a chance to make that game interesting, but I don't think anyone would predict anything less than a Buckeyes victory.
I hope in that game that they expect to make a ton of plays from the pocket, because that means the defensive line of the Buckeyes can go nuts. Getting back to Wisconsin a little bit, like you said, the loss of Jack Sitchie, or however you pronounce his last name, is enormous. There were times last year where I thought, not prospect-wise, but in terms of just on-field play, he was among the better linebackers in the Big Ten.
They got in your ass as a defense, too.
He didn't even play. He was hurt.
Sure.
That's how good they were. But he was great. I mean, I remember the Michigan game. He and T.J. Watt just put on a friggin' show. They never should even have been in that game, and they kept it close. Very, very impressive. We'll do a little recruiting here before we finish up. There's always some updates to the top 247, and the 247 composite obviously changes when there are updates elsewhere. The class of 2019 just got recalibrated, and one of the highest-ranking Buckeye target moved up. Shocker. I think he went from 7 or 8 to number 4 in the composite. He's ranked number 3 in the top 247 rankings done in-house here, and that is Zach Harrison out of the Columbus area and the Olentangy area, right on Bill Crowe's jog route. I don't think that's a coincidence. Give us, the people who haven't focused on 2019 yet, just how good Harrison is, what he looks like in person. He's one of those guys we talked about. Mayor Munford off the air here a little bit. We said he's going to be a pro. Zach Harrison is going to be a professional football player. It's just a matter of where he gets drafted. Bring us up to speed on where he is and if he has a shot to even move further up the rankings.
Yeah, I think he's in the discussion for number 1. We rank him number 3 on 24/7 Sports, but at the opening, Barton Simmons and I had some strong conversation about him being number 1. His raw physical traits are as good as anybody in the country. 6'6", 250 pounds, and super athletic, high motor kid. He's raw right now. He's not as polished as some of his peers, but as he puts it all together, that skill set has number 1 in the NFL draft type ability. The only thing with the kid like Josh Harrison is you just won't, if you had to, is he too nice a kid to be a killer? But he certainly has everything going for him. And I particularly love him and think he's an outstanding prospect, and just would be surprising to see him end up anywhere but Ohio State. He's the type of kid that fits the mold of a kid that would certainly strongly consider Notre Dame. And he obviously is high on Michigan and Penn State too, but he's pretty much on Urban Meyer's jog route as well, right?
That's a fact. We'll end it there. Let's just say Bill Kurlick, when he's jogged by there, there's been remnants of Meyer visits all over the place. All legal, of course. Steve, we appreciate it. We appreciate your wife tolerating you talking in the car. Have a good one, Bucknutters.
Daniel, first tackle in the Indiana game. Pete Werner on special teams, baby, out of Indianapolis. You guys have a good one.